Welcome back to Spray Grower Homestead. So today we're going to be answering your top 5 questions about using llamas as guard animals. Now, a little bit of background on our knowledge of dealing with llamas. I've actually raised them since 1993. We used to show, we've done rescue work. At one time our personal herd actually numbered 40. Now we have just 2 old boys that are kind of old and retired. They are around 16, 17 years old. I've looked at adding a few more here and there, but right now we don't really have the fence space for them, so we just have the 2 old boys. So to say we've dealt with a lot of llamas over the years would probably be an understatement. With the rescue and everything else, we've probably had hands-on and been involved with 80 to 100 llamas since '93. So, you know, we've seen a lot, we've done a lot, and here's my take on using llamas as guard animals. So the first question I get a lot is, how do llamas actually protect? Well, we'll talk about it in a minute, but protect is kind of a strong word. Basically, llamas are really good at keeping an eye on everything. Most of the stock that they guard or used to guard are pretty short. So they are taller, they have better eyesight, and can see further just from a higher vantage point. So what llamas actually do is the first line of defense is an alarm call. And we'll go ahead and dub in a sound of that. But they make this alarm call which will alert the herd and any other animals in their vicinity that there is a problem. It's kind of a funny sound. They kind of vibrate when they do it, which is kind of funny. So that's kind of the first line of defense. Now, every now and then you'll get one that will actually run a predator down. We've had a few over the years that will actually run and try and stomp canines, large cats, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how they go about it, is mostly they establish a territory, they watch, they alarm, and in extreme cases they'll actually assault a predator. The second question that we're getting a lot is, can every llama be used as a guardian? And the answer to this is absolutely 100% no. Most llamas actually don't have any guard inclinations whatsoever. I think in all the years that we've had llamas, we've had, I would say, 3 that were pretty good at actually physically protecting their boundaries. We had a female named Graceland that would actually chase dogs down, and we had 2 different geldings that were really good at chasing dogs and other, coyotes type canine predators out of their pen and would attempt to stomp things. We did have one stud at one point that would not only do that, but he would actually get in the face of strangers that came too close to his fence. But that's, like I said, out of dealing with probably 80 to 100 llamas over the years, that's it. We've had about 4. Now, we've had others that will do an alarm call. The 2 old boys that I have left now, Spitty and Prince, both will alarm call if they smell something that is unusual that they don't think should be there. We even have problems with Spitty. Whenever we bring a new dog onto the property, it takes a long time for him to settle down and understand you don't have to alarm at every single time you see the dog. So that's, you'll get a few more that are big on that, but actually protecting and actually physically trying to do the work of a guardian, we've had 4. So I would say you're lucky if you can find 1 in every 20. Now, some lines are more protective, so if you say, buy an offspring of a female that's being used as a guard, your odds are better that offspring might be a guard animal. But it's like my husband being an engineer and his parents are accountants. So it is kind of an individual type thing, but you have higher chances if you can find one that's actually coming out of working animals to start with. Okay, so the third question I'm getting a lot is, what kind of animals can llamas actually be used to guard? Well, mostly they're used in the United States for sheep and goats. I have heard of people using them actually on cattle farms to keep coyotes out of newborn calves. That is about it. You don't really see them for much anything else. They don't have any real inclination towards poultry, so unless you get something that is very territorial and just going to keep, coons or fox or coyotes or whatever out of poultry simply because they don't like it in their territory, that's about as good as you're going to get with them guarding that. A llama kept on its own will occasionally bond to its goats and sheep, so therefore they're more likely to guard them. But yeah, that's about it. You can't use them for a whole lot of stuff, but really in the United States, that's where we have the most predation, is in goat and sheep herds. So the next question would be, knowing that they can guard these animals, what are they good at guarding against? So mostly canines. I've heard of llamas running out bobcat. I've never actually seen it myself. One of our males out back would alarm if he smells bobcat, just because big cats are more pungent. There seems to be a growing misconception that you can use llamas to guard against anything. To be honest, bobcat is about as big of a cat as I would try and protect against, and coyote is as big of a dog threat or a canine threat as I would try and use to guard against. Cougars will kill llamas. Bears will kill llamas. Wolves will kill llamas. So if you're using it to deter smaller predators, that's reasonable, but don't think they're going to protect against a cougar issue. We got firsthand experience with this about close to 10 years ago. My parents were living in Sia, Oregon, with our kind of older retired llama herd, and they lost pretty much all of them over a summer. Had the state in trying to trap them, couldn't trap the cougars. It turned out that there were two, and they were sport killing. So we had really large llamas. We were breeding for packers, so these were girls that were 400 to 500 pounds, and the cougars were just taking them out. So please do not try and use a llama to protect anything against a cougar. Bears are the same way. I've heard of black bears and grizzlies both killing llamas, so please don't try that. Okay, so our last question is, what sex and age make for the best guardians? Well, I would definitely not try and use anything under age 2. They just lack the maturity. I see all the time on Craigslist and different places, people trying to get 9-month-old babies or 6-month-old babies and think they're going to do something. They won't. They lack the maturity because they're babies. So 2 years and up, stay away from intact males. Females, especially if they've had offspring, if they do have an inclination to guard and are territorial enough, would be my first choice, followed by geldings second. Again, they need to really show you, they either need to be coming off of a farm where they've actually done it, or they need to show you some territorial type behavior, or they're just not worth trying to use as guard animals. Females, like I said, you've got to understand that how females operate in the wild is that females are actually in charge of the herd, never the male that's servicing them. It's always a female. So what you're looking for is a real alpha type personality female. Anything too submissive isn't going to do you any good. You'll get them where they'll submit right down to the livestock and not do you any good at all. The reason you have to be careful with geldings is that most of the time we don't recommend that llamas be gelded until age 2 so that their growth plates are starting to close and that they're more mature. What this means is that sometimes they continue to have a bit of a higher sex drive, and we have seen geldings try and breed females. They've tried to breed goats, they try to breed sheep, and what happens is if they're dry breeding female llamas, they can actually cause damage to the uterus that can cause infertility in your female. With goats and sheep, it's far more serious when you're talking about a male that's anywhere from 300 to 500 pounds. You're talking about suffocation, injury, death, the whole 9 yards. So definitely a female if you can find a protective one. A gelding, that's maybe been with sheep and goats already, or might have even been gelded a little bit earlier, like 18 months, that kind of thing. But definitely over 2 years old. Remember that these guys can live as long as 20 years. For us, the average has been kind of like 15 to 16. My boys are pretty healthy and actually a little bit over that right now. So, a llama is a long-term thing. If you get one that's 3 and 4 and 5, as long as they're in good health, you should still be looking at another 10 years of, a quality life. All right, so that was the top 5 questions I've been getting about using llamas as guard animals. If you've got other questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Now, llamas have kind of fallen out of favor in the United States. They were real big back in the 90s, back when I got started with them. So, unfortunately, where you see them the most now is running through auction houses and through Craigslist and being sold by a lot of people who really don't have a lot of knowledge with them. So, if you have questions specific to llamas, please leave them down in the comments. I've been around them for really knocking on about 30 years and have seen just about everything. So, I planned, if there's enough interest to this one, I may do another video talking about actually raising llamas on your farm. That includes alpacas, and we'll kind of go from there. I will add a little note here. When we're talking about llamas, I do mean full-size llamas. Please do not use alpacas as guard animals. In South America, alpacas are guarded by llamas. So alpacas really are not big enough to protect from anything. The best you can hope for is something that's going to alarm. And they do kind of every now and then you get one that gets kind of nasty with people. But I've never really heard of an alpaca that was any kind of effective at deterring canine activity, other than when you first move them in. A lot of times coyotes, especially if that's what you're dealing with, will back off of things that they don't understand until they figured them out. So if you've gotten an alpaca to guard and everything turns out great, it's not going to for forever. Eventually the coyotes figure out that the alpaca really isn't going to do anything and they move back into the territory. So, but anyway, feel free, leave a comment. That is it for today for your Top 5 Tuesday. We will see you next time. Happy homesteading. Stay warm out there. It's still winter.